MTV's The Challenge is a game where tensions run high, and because of that, we've seen some bitter rivalries take form. One of the most iconic in the show's history was Wes versus Kenny. Now, to get the full scope of this rivalry, we have to start from the beginning. Both Kenny and Wes would make their challenge debuts on Fresh Meat Season 12. Wes was coming off from being on The Real World Austin, while Kenny was coming in as part of the Fresh Meat Twist, which was half the cast being made up of players who had never been featured on a reality show before, competing on the challenge. Both players would find themselves on the bottom rung of the season. Wes was thrown into 5 total exiles on the basis of 1. The influx of Real World Austin contestants on the season, and 2. The classic challenge strategy of if a rookie has been thrown in once, why not throw them into elimination over and over again? Kenny was partnered up with Tina Barta, who during Fresh Meat was a 4-time vet. Tina and Kenny weren't the best team by any means, and when the house wasn't targeting Wes and Casey, they'd target Kenny and Tina. Combined, Wes and Kenny would see a total of 7 eliminations out of the 8 that was on Fresh Meat, and they won every single time. Kenny and Tina actually helped Wes and Casey make the finals on the season. Kenny and Tina won the final daily challenge, where they sent in the 2 friend teams of Derek DM and Laurel and Aviv against each other.
Derek versus Laurel.
Meaning, Kenny and Wes made it to the finals in their rookie season. Wes would lock in 3rd place, and Kenny would take home 2nd as Laurel and Aviv won. The season would end with no animosity between Wes and Kenny. No ill will, no bad vibes or anger. Everything would stay peaceful between the two on the next season, The Duel. It looked like at one point everyone was good friends. Kenny wouldn't last long on the season, losing to Nehemiah in episode 5, as Wes would go on to win. Now, before moving on, there was a point where things got heated between Wes and Evan, Kenny's best friend. With Kenny gone, Wes and Evan struck up a deal that they wouldn't say each other's names if they got voted into elimination. Also a part of this deal, they agreed that Wes would call out Brad for elimination, while Evan would call out CT. In episode 13, Evan was voted in and kept his side of the bargain, where he called out CT for elimination.
Go with CT.
Any particular reason? He's being all nervous about it, like maybe he made a mistake. Yeah, you made a mistake, bro. You're going home.
Instantly, Evan was hit with regret. Once TJ dismissed everyone, Evan confronted Wes and blamed him for setting him up for having to face off against CT in elimination.
I feel like me, but I think you're wrong. This was the plan.
He's mad at me because he's scared.
This wouldn't directly affect Kenny or the rivalry, but I think that this could be the starting crack where the idea of Wes being a snake and untrustworthy could stem in the mob/JEK's minds. Through 2 seasons, this rivalry hadn't formed at all. The next season, in Inferno 3, CT would be kicked off of the season in episode 1, where TJ announced there would be a replacement coming to take his place on the Badasses team. Kenny in the confessionals actually hoped to see Wes come onto the season to be his teammate.
I got my fingers crossed for like my man Evan or Wes.
But instead, Derek would be on the season and go on to win alongside Kenny and the rest of the Badasses team. The Wes and Kenny rivalry wouldn't start until season 16, The Island, a season that Wes wasn't even on, but would involve him via Johanna. Johanna was a contestant on The Real World Austin, where she met Wes. They had a very flirtatious friendship on the Real World season, but nothing would blossom until we saw the couple on season 12, Fresh Meat. On The Duel, Wes talked about wanting to win to possibly propose to Johanna and use the money to get an engagement ring. On season 15, Gauntlet 3, Johanna mentioned how she and Wes had officially moved in together.
Wes and I moved in together.
But when it came to The Island, Wes and Johanna had broken up.
Since the Gauntlet 3, Wes and I broke up.
So you may be asking, how does a rivalry spark between 2 guys when on the surface it looks like 2 single people hooking up on the beach? In an interview with Mike Lewis, Johanna mentioned that prior to going onto the island, Wes specifically asked Johanna not to hook up with Kenny.
Had Wes asked me, please do not hook up with Kenny, yes. Did I do exactly that? Yes. Did I do it on purpose? No.
Johanna told him he had nothing to worry about. But once the season started and boredom set in, Kenny and Johanna struck up a romantic relationship. And Kenny took this as an opportunity to take some pop shots at Wes in the confessionals.
I think Wes is a piece of and I hate the guy. If she wants it, come walk on the sun, darling.
There was something about Kenny that rubbed Wes the wrong way if he told Johanna to specifically not hook up with Kenny and only Kenny. Combine that information with Kenny's confessionals on Wes, along with Kenny and Banana's other comments they made on the season, mainly towards the women, and I could see Wes being frustrated with Kenny.
Shut up. Tanya, you're not catching the conversation whatsoever.
Woman every
but
day.
You're the biggest for sure.
Thanks.
No one wants to listen to you, dumb bitch.
I'm a dumb bitch now.
Kind of.
On top of all that, Kenny won the season. Kenny winning, I think, also plays a factor because with the island win, that gave Kenny 2 championships to Wes's 1 solo win in the duel, which fuels the competitive rivalry between the two. Both would skip out on the duel 2, but would reunite for The Challenge Season 18, The Ruins. This season overflowed with drama with how the cast was set up. We had Kenny, Johanna, Evan, Bananas, Darrell, and Derek, all of whom were not big fans of Wes at this time. The Ruins Challenge House was a hostile environment for Wes, Evelyn, and Kellyanne against the whole mob and whoever else was persuaded by Kenny to jump in the anti-Wes camp. What didn't help things was that Wes arrived to the house later than everyone else, which is never a good sign, especially with a house full of people who think you lied to them.
Fast forward to the Ruins. After I graduate college, I then am like, okay, it's time to go back and try another one. Like a week or so beforehand, we get it together with Justin Booth. He cut someone from the show and he throws me on. I get on a plane, so I didn't have a chance to tell anyone that I was going or anything. I didn't have a chance to pre-politic. I get on the plane, I show up. They bring me into the room, into the house like a half a day or a day after everyone had already been there. The rumors were flying that I was coming. I'm not doing anything wrong but following the producer's direction, showing up a little bit late to a house. And within 20 minutes of being there, I'm getting screamed at by the entire house, bullied and like picked on and yelled at. And I just start fighting back.
Prior to the season, once someone got a call saying that they would be on the cast for the upcoming season, they call everyone they could to see if they'd be on the cast as well. Multiple players have stated that they called Wes asking if he'd be back for the season, and Wes told everyone no. So seeing Wes walk in the door rubbed people the wrong way.
People ask me, is he coming? I say, I know the kid. I called him. I take him at face value. He said he wasn't coming.
I spoke with Wes several times. No, I'm not coming. I'm not coming. I was lied to.
Wes was on a stacked champions team, but Wes was ready to tank challenges unless his team came up with a system to know who would be going into eliminations each week, like a revolving door system, in fear he'd be sent in over and over until he was eventually eliminated. The champions team didn't like being told what to do and didn't take lightly to threats. First, they staged a coup to send Evelyn against her best friend and Wes's girlfriend at the time, Kellyanne, cutting out a number for Wes.
Such a bitch.
Johanna threatened to sell Wes's house if he tried to throw more challenges since her name was on the deed.
Once again, just proof that she has no concept of fair.
I learned from the master.
There were also a number of behind-the-scenes pranks that the champions team would pull on Wes to make his stay in the house more miserable.
I would be in line to get my food and people would come by and slam my plate out of the ground. There was also an interesting little night where I had to go into an elimination and the next day, and Derek helped everyone move the treadmill to right next to my bed so they could, my entire team, including Derek, would take shifts running on the treadmill, so that way all night I was trying to sleep next to someone running next to the treadmill. And then I'll just give this one sentence because I don't know how much I can legally go beyond that, but it was my fucking toothbrush.
Although things were heated in the house for a time, things cooled down until Wes wanted to take on Kahutta, where Wes would get his first challenge elimination loss in Unspooled. Wes left mid-season as JEK would waltz their way to the finals and win. In between the Ruins and Fresh Me 2, Wes and Kenny would be coaches in a 5-episode spin-off season called the Spring Break Challenge, and even in a spin-off, their rivalry was still alive and well. In episode 3, Wes would accuse Kenny's team of cheating.
Kenny, do you think you won fair and square today?
Absolutely.
All right. I would appreciate a replay because Kenny's team touched the thing immediately right from the start, and yet Landon's team is disqualified for it, but yet your team did it twice blatantly.
Are you trying to say that my team cheated?
Yes.
It's not considered cheating till you get caught.
In episode 4, Darrell would fuel the fire more by putting Team Kenny versus Team Wes in Balls In Daily Challenge.
And we have the classic rivalry of Wes and Kenny. That usually turns out with Wes going home in tears and Kenny stomping on his hopes and dreams.
Wes's team would ultimately get purged in the final Daily Challenge. Kenny's team would face off against Susie's team in the finals, where Kenny's team took second place. We as the audience wouldn't have to wait long for the next installment of the Kenny and Wes rivalry, where both players were on the next season, Fresh Meat 2. Early in the game, Wes and Kenny made a truce to target a shared bigger threat in the game, Darrell. I mean, they both probably got flashbacks of Darrell beating them back in their debut season and needed to join forces to ensure that didn't happen again. Kenny kept his end of the bargain by sending Darrell and Cara directly into the exile, where Wes worked his political excellency by getting the whole house to vote in Jillian and Pete. It was at that moment Kenny saw just how much power Wes had over the house.
I'm playing a game now with a bunch of people who would pay them a night turnaround.
Wes also made an alliance with Landon, who never really took part in alliances prior to this season. It was this alliance that led to Kenny being sent into the exile in episode 2, and Wes's numbers got Sarah and Vinny, Kenny's #1 team in the game, sent in against him. Kenny was fuming.
I would rip your head off.
Trying to tell me that you're getting mad about me throwing you up against a friend?
What?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Kenny and Laurel would go on a 3-episode winning streak, which would make things very messy for Wes. By episode 6, to save both himself and Evelyn, Wes was making deals to have Landon and CJ sent into exile, which would come back to get him in the very next episode, where in episode 7, Landon and Carly won into power and easily chose Wes and Mandy to send into exile, while Evelyn and Luke became the house vote. Kenny would get the last laugh as he and Laurel would make the finals. Now, even though they wouldn't win, I'm sure it felt good to Kenny knowing he made another finals, as Wes and his BFF Evelyn would be watching from the comfort of their own homes.
I get it. I know why you hate me, because I'm unstoppable. That I'm dough man, and you're just a donut.
Their rivalry would come to a head in the Challenge's 21st season, Rivals, where Kenny and Wes would be paired up together. I mean, if there was a team that was leagues ahead of everyone in terms of physicality, success, strategy, and social gameplay, it was Wes and Kenny. They were the full package. The only downfall of their gameplay was performance-based. Kenny and Wes were never going to be voted in by the house, but they did see 2 eliminations on the season because they finished last place in 2 dailies. They won both times and never was worried about possibly going in at all for the rest of the season. Once CT and Adam were eliminated, there was no way Kenny and Wes weren't considered the favorites heading into the Rivals finals. They did well day 1, coming into the overnight portion in first place and starting day 2 with a tiny bit of a head start. But that final day came down to a foot race up the mountain where Bananas and Tyler were able to surpass Kenny and Wes. Kenny and Wes came in second place, got 50K, but that wasn't enough as Kenny seemed more pissed at Wes than ever before.
And you still it up.
Dude, what the
He blamed the whole loss on Wes. And to be fair, Wes wasn't performing very well in the finals, but I would argue it was because he was exhausted from picking up Kenny's slack for majority of the season.
Wes is carrying me through this game at this point. I really need to work my confidence back up.
This would be the final time we'd see Kenny and Wes on the challenge together. A lawsuit would be filed against MTV, Kenny and Evan, which would lead to a permanent ban of both players to never appear on the challenge again. Wes would go on to have more success on the challenge, making it to 2 more finals, winning Rivals 2 beside once rival CT, and winning the Challenge All-Stars 3. The Kenny and Wes rivalry was only in full force for 3 complete seasons, but it's a rivalry that would be one of the most memorable and impactful on the challenge in its history. Bananas would step in to pick up the beef with Wes in Kenny's absence, where they would fight with each other for over 6 seasons before joining forces / becoming friends in season 35 total madness.
We're friends?
Yeah.
Does this mean we're allies?
Yeah.
Does this mean we're more than friends, just slightly less than lovers?
Yeah.
The Bananas and Wes rivalry is one of, if not the biggest rivalry in challenge history, but really, there isn't anything like the original rivalry between Kenny and Wes, which felt like it was rooted in something more